Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this hangout here this afternoon on Google Plus with the fabulous Derek Mills. Derek, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today.
Thanks, yeah.
And thank you so much for doing this interview and for sharing your inspiration with our audience out here today.
Thanks for asking me.
No problem at all. So we met probably about 6 weeks, 2 months ago now at an event in London. And when we got talking, I was struck immediately by your passion and by your vision to change things and to really change the world by sharing your philosophy.
Yes.
And I was so inspired by it that I wanted to bring you to the masses here today so they could get inspired and share as well and really understand a little bit more about how you came to where you are today, what that journey involved, because having read the book myself a couple of times now, I can relate to quite a few things in there personally, and I think it's wonderful to be able to share with our audience how you arrived at that.
Okay.
So, Derek,
happy to.
Yeah, please tell us a little bit about yourself to start off with.
Wow. I think the key thing is I see my life as a life of two parts. The first part being as my non-self. I didn't know who I was, what I was doing, what the world was all about. And as a result of that time living in my non-self, I was unhappy. I go even further than that. I say I was depressed, clinically unhappy, and I was lost. So then I had a shift. And as a result of that shift, I began to experience or channel or have messages from within that guided me. And they guided me to a different life. And the life they guided me to was just a life of me, of being who I really am, the true self, which I discovered the language around who I really am. And as I began to live my life as my true self, I immediately became happy. Yeah, that was the first thing. And after that, the most incredible things just kept on happening and still do, both inside of me and outside in the world. And that's what people began to pay attention to. How did this guy who was a failure suddenly, with no more learnings, change his life and become something else?
So I understand exactly what you're talking about when you talk about true self, but can you share a little bit more with the audience about what the true self is?
Yeah. The true self is it's the essence of who you truly are. It's what you came here as.
Okay.
So, say for example, some people tend to believe that they came into creation when they were born, or even at the point of conception. Whereas I know that we're all eternal. We were here before we were born. After we die, we're still going to be here, but in a different way. So, the true self is the true essence of each of us, the real being that's inside of us, our awareness, which includes our skills, our abilities, the gifts we came here with, all the talents. And that's the true self, the real being inside. And to make it really, really clear, we're not this physical body. This isn't us. Yeah. Much more learned people than I will share with you that your body changes, your cells shift every 7 years, and everything moves around. But regardless of where you are in your body, you're not your body. You're just, your body works with you, and when they're working together, you experience bliss, and of course one can conflict with the other. But the essence inside is the spirit of who you really are, and that's what I call the true self. It's who you really are. And I emphasise the point because in the world today, particularly in the 21st century, where we've gone through a massive period of expansion economically in the world in the last 70 to 80 years, most people still believe that they are their body. That if they're tall, beautiful, young, that they're successful. If they're 95 and not those things, maybe they're unsuccessful. And the body is nothing more than a vessel for your truth, your true self. And there are components to the true self, which when we tap into those components, we begin to live a life which you would call extraordinary. Yeah. When you tap into the true self. So that's who you really are, the true self. And anything else that we do in our lives that isn't acting from that place is what's called non-self. And that's the non-self is typically driven by the ego, what we think we should be, do and have, or by the world, what the world tells us. You've got to be like this, and this is what you must have, what you must wear, where you must live, and this means success, and this means failure. So all those things conspire to put us out of our true self. And success comes from being your true self, because you can be happy in that place.
Yeah,
I hope that helps.
It does,
Yeah,
and I think what's really fabulous about that, Derek, is, you know, it's what you really hit on there was, we get kind of really caught up by society and by the influences that are around us, and because people get caught up by those things, they don't actually feel and believe that they can be who they want to be, and that's what struck me the most, was that, you know, the book very much talks about that it's okay for you to be that person. And as you said, you know, ego and various different things drive us to these channels and make us feel that we really need to be somebody that actually we don't want to be, but we feel like we should conform. And I think that the true self is very much about, like you say, being true to you and being who you are, because that's who you want to be, and not because you're living by somebody else's guidelines and standards and you know, and sort of belief.
Yeah, you just give me goosebumps just then, because as you were talking, I'm thinking, well, that's it.
Yeah.
And when I woke up, about 8 years ago, I woke up after all those years of being asleep. I say I was asleep for about 18 years. Yeah. 18 years of my adult life, because as you're a child, you're still growing, and you're a teenager, you're still developing. As an adult, for 18 years, I was asleep. Yeah. When I woke up, I realised just what you've said. I was desperately unhappy, and I was broke. Married, with children, saving the house from repossession. Yeah. Bailiffs coming into the house. No, that's never a good thing.
No, it's not.
and having issues and financial problems, all the rest of it. And then realising that actually I was desperately unhappy. I was clinically unhappy. I was never diagnosed by doctors being depressed. But I knew that I was really, really down there. And part of the reason, when I woke up, one of the first things that came through me was, you're not happy, Derek, because you're not who you truly are. And you can't be truly happy as not you. Yeah. So what that meant for me in that space was, actually, I've been living a life based on my clients, the world, the society, the media, my community, my education, that all told me that I should be. And I was trying to be all these things. And this wasn't even in a materialistic way. It was just me trying to be what I thought I should be, based on what the world says that this guy should be. And it led me, at the age of 38, to being basically depressed. So at that point, my truth began to speak to me. And my truth said, you know, just stop. You know? If you're going to go one more day on this planet, do it as you. Do it as you. And it's funny thing is, that kind of made me think about, because the other thing that came out of me that night was to stop setting goals. And I'll come back onto that. One was to stop setting goals, which are future-based, and start living by daily standards. Yeah. And that really ties in, because when we set goals, they are based on the future. Yeah. No matter if it's next week, next month, next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's a future-based thing. And when I've spoken to audiences of all different cultures and religions, and I ask them, so when you've got the house and you've got the promotion, you've got the whatever, you say to yourself, then you'll be happy. And people say, yeah, then I'll be happy. Well, and then when you get that thing, you then set another goal. When I've got that, then I'll be happy. And we go on. Which means that the happiness is always in the future, with the next goal.
Not about
instead
now.
of being present right now, today.
We're living in the present.
Well, we only have the present. You know,
exactly.
There is no past that we can re-inherit, and there's no future that we can occupy. Because even when we get to the future, all we have is another now. Exactly. So it's about being now, about being present today, right now. You know, and I talk about that because my mother died when she was 36 years old. She died at an age where I was still asleep, if that makes sense. I didn't wake up until I was 38. She died at 36. What if I'd died? The thing about being asleep is that you don't know when you're going to go. Yeah? And if you decide to yourself you're going to be who you really are in the future one day, well, how do you know you've got one day? How do you know the good Lord isn't going to call you today?
Yeah,
today.
Absolutely.
What are you waiting for? So what is this 3 and 5 and 10? Because having met with so many people over these years, people say, when I do this, then I'll be better with my husband, better with my wife. I'll be the real me with my friends, and definitely with the kids, and I'd be like this, and I would help those people, and I would be this way, and I'd be enthusiastic. And all that really happens is they put that off, and they defer that without any thought or respect for the fact that they could literally be gone tomorrow.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you're absolutely right, because one of my favourite sayings and one of the things that I encourage most with people is carpe diem. seize the day.
I remember that. Yeah, you've said that.
And
Yeah.
it's and I think it's for all the reasons that you've just said. You know, I mean, part of my journey was having a real big moment of realization and a breakdown and kind of looking at my life and saying, actually, I'm really not living my life in the way that I want to live it.
Yeah.
And as you say, you know, goals are something that I think can be so demotivating as well as motivating, because it's always about that aspiration of the future. And like you say, the only thing that we all have is the present. And it's being here and now and living in this moment and actually doing it right now.
It is. Sorry.
So what I was going to say next was, so in the book you talk about, in the 10-second philosophy, this is everybody, this is a book that you definitely need to be getting a copy of. But in the book you talk about the moment where the realisation hit and the moment where you just kind of, this is it, I've got to make this change. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened that day?
Probably better than that. I can show you where it happened. Because it happened just behind you, just over there.
We're in the place.
This is the room.
Yeah.
Because back then, this is this business. I work as a self-employed practitioner, but it's all a meritocracy. In other words, if you do okay, you get a nice office. If you don't, they put 2 or 3 of you in one office.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that.
So I used to share this office.
Yeah.
And it was this office I was in, and my desk was over there. And just was one night, just late at the office, it was around kind of 9:30 in the evening, and the security guard came in to the door and just said, no, time to lock up. And I said, well, give me 10 more minutes. And then he walked away again, and then came back. I said, well, give me 2 more minutes. And I was shuffling paper, who am I going to call the next day? And to that point, I'd been driving around the country for scraps of business, driving down from the south to north to London, everywhere, trying to do business and see people. And I'd work any day. You name a day, I'll be there. I'll see you there. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 in the evening. I'll be Saturday afternoon. I'll be there. And what was really happening was that my prospects or clients weren't respecting me. And what I figured out since, of course, is that people give you just as much respect based on the standards that you set for yourself. People give you the respect based on the standards that you set for yourself. Well, back then, I didn't know I even had standards.
Yep.
Because no one ever sat down with me and said, let's look at what your standards are. And standards, for the purpose of the philosophy, as you know, are the basis, criteria, rules, qualities, and levels that we set from within, based on who we really are.
Yeah.
So we look at all those. Now, I didn't have any known standards. So that night in the office, I was just struggling, I was depressed, I was basically broke, looking for where the next income's going to come from. And it's not good when you're just working just for cash flow.
No.
I would go somewhere, down south, for example, to do some business, not to make any profit, just to have some cash flow.
Yeah, and I can relate to that when I worked in the industry. Because you kind of scrabbling for the next thing because you don't have that strategy and you don't have how I'm going to do it. You just know that that's what I've got to do, and it's almost, it comes from a place of desperation, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and that's such a key point. So one of the things I did that night, when the guard came back to the office to lock up, I said, give me those 2 more minutes. He just asked me one question. And part of the philosophy is, shares that anything can change the whole of our lives, that can wake us up. And it can be a word, a thought, a question, as it was for me, a phrase or an idea. It may not be like you haven't got to go to a huge meeting and to see something and have this whole light flashing epiphany. You can just have a question on a billboard that in that moment catches you, and you go, and the idea is to take that inside of you and let it do something with you. So the security guard said to me, what time did you get in this morning? And I just said, well, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. And then he walked away, and I began to, in that moment, just stood there and began to think, I've been up since 6, on the road since 7, in the office at 8, it's now almost 10 o'clock in the evening, that's my regular pattern, not seeing my wife, not seeing my children, it's ruining those relationships, haven't really got any friends, I'm stressed out, going to the doctors all the time, and I said to the words to the effect, my life is poor, words to that effect. And that's when, as I stood there in that moment, I felt a whole shift just come over me. The whole of my essence just said, I knew I was somewhere else. And I knew there was a message, there was a voice, there was something speaking to me from the inside. And I recognized the voice. It was my voice. It's my true self that said to me, you're not happy because you're not who you truly are. And you can't be truly happy as not you. And in that 10 seconds, concepts just came to me. Concepts such as, if you're going to continue another day, do it as you. Stop setting goals. They're making you happy in the future's never coming. start setting standards by daily standards, set from within, and live by those daily standards. And since then, in the last 8 years, so many more concepts just keep pouring out of me. And here's what I do. That very same night when I had that conversation with my true self, whatever guidance it gave to me, I followed it.
Yeah.
This is one of the key things to people who I meet all over the world. I'm speaking all around the world. And a lot of people have guidance, have messages from within, have words, thoughts, phrases, ideas come to them, inspiration, intuition, words, messages. And here's what they do. They shove them back inside and go on with what the world thinks that they should be or do or how they should behave. Well, that thing inside of you, that thing inside of me is a genius.
Yes.
So when we get into that true self space, when we stop, pause, and go inside and let the message sink, as in whatever it be a word, thought, question, phrase, whatever that side of us, let it go inside of us. The next thing to do is to listen to the words, thoughts, questions, phrases, and ideas that come from inside of us. That's the intuition, that's the instinct, that's the inner guidance, that's your guru speaking to you. You don't need a 40,000-year-old guru that charges you £100,000 a year as to how to be yourself. Yourself is already in you,
Yeah.
but it speaks to you through messages and intuition is the language of true self.
Yeah.
And that language can come in words, thoughts, questions, phrases, and ideas. So what I did that night, and I do to this day, I did it today, something I was talking about earlier on, is that whenever I had a word, a thought, a question, a phrase, or idea, or a feeling about something, I just said, that's my true self speaking to me.
Yeah.
And I followed it.
Yeah.
Go right instead of left, I'd go right. Call that person now instead of them, I'd call that person. Do this with your business, I'd do that. Stop doing that, and I would do that. And I just follow my intuition. And it's very hard. In the past, people said to me, that's a really brave thing to do. I mean, just followed your own inner voice and stopped listening to the other people in the community and the industry and your colleagues, and you stop. I don't really see it necessarily as being a courageous thing to do. And that's for two reasons. Number one, I was in a really low place.
Yeah.
That voice freed me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a courageous thing to do. When someone offers you freedom, it's not. If someone says to you, listen, the gate's open, it doesn't take courage to run out.
No.
It just takes number two, which is your truth.
Yeah.
I recognised what was inside of me was my truth speaking to me. And if my truth speaks to me, I'm going to follow what it asks me to do,
Yeah.
where it asks me to go, whatever I need to do in my business or my life or my health or my relationships, I'm following it through. And within a few short years, my life was, it changed so dramatically. That, other things happened because of that.
And as you said, all this comes back to actually living life by your daily standards.
Indeed.
And, I knew that I always did live life by some standards, but actually reading your book, what it made me do is it made me have that more objective look.
Indeed.
Because, one of the things that really stuck out when we originally met was you said, okay, like 3% of Americans are actually achieving their goals.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
that's a big percentage of
Yeah.
people
Yeah, who are not
that
doing
are
it.
not doing it.
Yeah.
And as you say, I think the sad part is that a lot of people kind of aspire to all these different things and they strive for this, and then when they get there, they go, is that it?
Yeah, is this all there is?
Is this all it is?
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
it's far more exciting and it's far more personally motivating for you to live it on a daily basis,
Yeah.
because then you're not striving towards that,
Yeah.
oh, is that it? You're actually
Yeah.
kind of living it every single day and saying, yeah, this is my life.
Yeah.
So
This is
Derek,
clear. Yeah.
share some with the audience, some of the the daily standards that you
Okay.
took on at that time and that you live your life by today.
Let's say a couple of things first. First is that a standard for the purpose of this philosophy is a basis, a criteria, a level, a quality or rule that
Yeah.
you set,
Okay. Yes.
from within.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ignoring what the world tells us that you
Yeah.
should have. And
We're
do.
not worried about them. We want
Ignore
them
them.
us.
You
Yeah.
go inside, you sit. And when I see at the moment when I did the first time, I was standing, and I stood there that night in this office. I keep saying in the office, but I'm actually in the office.
In the office,
I'm actually in the office.
Yeah.
And as I stood there, one of the things that came up for me, as I mentioned, was to stop setting goals and start setting daily standards. So the question from me to my true self was, what does that mean? And it showed me many things, because most of us haven't ever taken the time to go, what are my standards? Three things really. What are my standards? where did they come from, and do they still serve me?
Yes.
Yeah, because in that moment, I know it's an awful lot, because it came through conceptually and feelings, I knew that I was living a life with standards that were nothing like the person I really was,
Yeah.
but I'd taken them on from somewhere. Yeah. Most of them were not honouring me, not serving me. In that moment, I said, set new standards. So one of the first things that I did was that I'm a bit anal about this. I kind of got this thing and wrote down lots of new standards, and I'll tell you what they are in a second. And I colour coded them.
Yeah.
I laminated them.
I like it.
And I gave copies to my children, copies to my wife, and said, I got home and I said, new dad, new standards. So here's what I used to do. What I used to do is I used to work 6 days a week until 10 o'clock and get home around 11:30 at night. I'd see clients anywhere, and I don't care how little money the clients had, to become a client. If it was just something, I'd scratch along and I'd go and get that bit of business.
It's business.
It's all those things, and I'd be travelling over the country, which is anyway. So I set a few new standards right in there, and I said, hold on a second. I'm a father and a husband first, before I'm anything else. Yeah, because business is a thing that I do, but it isn't me.
No.
This job is a thing that I do, but it isn't me. So our jobs aren't us, because we can just change a job, but we can't change the permanency of us. So I said, right, from now on, I'm going to work just at that point 3.5 days a week.
Yeah.
I'm working 6 until late at night. 3.5 days a week. I was missing my children in the morning, didn't kind of have them around because I was gone before they were out of bed. Another standard, as standard, every single day, new rule. Take my kids to school every single day.
Yeah.
And what I'd also said I would do as standard, take them home from school 3 days a week. No more working weekends. This was not a question of I might do one if a client gave me a call. It was like so absolute. No working weekends, no more late nights at night, normal home time. Don't work on a Friday, that's myself, my wife time. Weekends is family time. Set up all these new criteria around clients as well, because in those days, any client, any amount of money, I'll just take on and do some business.
Just do it, yeah.
Instead of setting new criteria, every client I take on must do two things, must do and be two things. One, they must come to me in the office.
Yep.
From anywhere in the country, meeting with me, come to me, in the office. That is something, so I'll come back to that one in a second. The other thing I said was that every client that I see must be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're not a millionaire, then they're not my client. They're somebody else's client. And there's no competition in this industry. There's enough people. If they're not my client, so I set standards around the quality of client that I would have. They must come and see me. If they value me, come and see me in the office, from wherever you are. And they must be a millionaire. Because I knew if they're a millionaire, if they're the right quality clients, for me to put my time into, which I always did.
Absolutely.
But then it'd be a win-win rather than they would win and I would lose, which was happening for the previous 18 years of my life with clients not very high earning, not much money.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're working with clients who are low income, low asset clients, you'll end up with low income and low assets yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
because it's about who we surround ourselves with. Yeah.
And I knew what I wanted to do is be a better father, better husband. That meant more time, because it is about time we spend, with our wife and our husbands and our children. One of the things that came to me a while ago was that probably about 20 years ago, someone said to me, I think it was Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
He said that children spell love, Time. And I thought, wow, that made me feel worse at the time, because I wasn't giving my children any time. I wasn't there for them. No. So when I created these new standards, these new rules and criteria and qualities, new basis of operating, it was all around that. Then I bought it on the business, because I knew I had to do my business, that quality of clients. It's really funny, when you call someone as a prospective client and you say to that client, I've been trying to go meeting with you for the last 2 years. I've been trying to come down to see you in Bristol or Brighton or whatever. And they say yes. And you say, okay, everything's changed. The whole practice has just changed. I need to let you know right now, I can never offer to come and see you again, because the whole practice has changed and the whole way we're doing business now is completely different. So here's a couple of things I'm going to say to you right now. Number one, the only way you can get to come and have a meeting with me from this point onwards is to come to my office in Solihull. That's the only way we're going to do it. And secondly, I can't even give you a time. So I can't let you choose the time. My secretary will let you know when you can come and see me. Yeah. Now you can imagine someone, when you've been trying to chase them for business for 2 years, when you give them that kind of call, they think one of two things. They think, A, he's lost it. And I knew some of them were thinking that. What's about this idiot here? Can't even get a meeting with me down here. They want me to come up and see him. When he says, hey. So they think, A, you've lost it. That's fine. And others, they think, this is interesting. What's this about? That's different. And internally they go, he's changed. Something about this guy has changed. Something about this woman is different. And if that's where they're holding themselves, respect, standards, I either fall in line with that or I won't. And here's the thing. Many clients I've been trying to get business with, or get meetings with for so many years, fell in line. They said, okay, we'll come and see them. When they got here, I told them what had changed was me. And this is how things are going to be. Because I always had the stuff, I always had the ability. But people will give you the respect based on the standards that you set for yourself. So I'm not going to put this into financial terms, just so that it's not to be arrogant in any way, just so that you know. The organisation I represent on a self-employed basis, out of about 1,200 practitioners in the company, I was about 1,000th on the list.
Yeah.
And you know what that means? That means in new business coming in, I was basically at the bottom, of that 1,200 advisors. I was somewhere near 1,000th forever. Yeah. And virtually overnight, within 3 years, the company grew to 1,600 associates, and I was 28th. Yeah. On top of that, within 3 years of my night of revelation, I became a millionaire. And just in the following year, then to put that into perspective, became a millionaire 3 years later, doing the same job. I'm still in the same office. You can witness that. It's in the same room.
Yeah.
In the same
but it's
office.
just you now.
No
one else in here.
I'm on my own now.
Yeah.
The office sharing has gone. The economy, the markets, the products, the services, all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And what happened, however, is that I changed.
Yeah.
And when you change, everything changes for you. So within 3 years, I got to the point where I'd proven that the economy is not the economy. The markets, you can't be the markets. The products, it's not that. It's not the company, it's not the clients. Oh, it's me. So I changed. And when I put the new me into my whole life, and for this exercise into my business, people turned up in such huge numbers, and my figures through the roof. It took me from that point onwards, and I made $1 million in the following year. As in 3 years, I became a millionaire. The following year, I made $1 million. And people began to say to me, "You're not very good at this job." Well, you weren't. And all of a sudden, you're now top of the tree. How have you done that? Yeah. And they began to turn up from around the industry to say, because we share numbers, it's like this business.
Yeah.
So people began to turn up and say to me, "What did you do?" And it's really funny. I started off by saying, "Well, I found who I really was. I went inside, got all fluffy, and they would kind of go, "Hey."
Yeah, I was going to say, in the world of financial services, you probably got the look of, Derek, have you seriously gone mad?
No, what really happened, Derek? No, don't tell us that. What really happened?
Yeah, and you're like, no, this is what really happened, and this is what I want you to understand and see.
And this is it. And you know what? I didn't do a big case, didn't get a massive client. I just had lots of wealthy people, all millionaires, turn up in numbers and do business with me in numbers they'd never done in the whole of my career before. So anyway, when people began to turn up, I told them about the fluffy stuff, and then, you know what? My genius spoke to me again, and it just said, "Derek, it's not about you, it's about them." So I talked to them in a way that they would get. So what came out of me was, okay, standards. Here's what I did. I set new standards around X, Y, and Z. My life, my business, my health, my relationships, my career, my time, my family, everything. And because they could hear the word standards, it looked like a construct or a process. Yeah. A bit like, not do goals, but do the standards. Yeah, so standards. Well, here's the beauty of standards. To look at standards, you have to look at the ones you've already got. So you have to do this. You then have to review which ones serve you, which ones honour you. So you have to do this. And then you have to decide which ones are best for you now to look at your life, what serve you and honour you in your life. So you have to do this. In other words, when I talk about standards and they began to write them down, I was coaching and guiding and mentoring people, they had to keep going inside to decide which standards were right for them. And I was almost orgasmic because I suddenly realised I'm on something, because they were writing out their standards, but they had to go introspectively to discover what right standards were for them. And as they took that journey, they changed. Because bit by bit, they began to discover the true self. And then, what was really fascinating for me, this bit, really part of my joy, is that I would meet someone and work with them, and after a couple of sessions, left brain, market, financial services, sales people, whatever they might call themselves. And then they'd say things like, at the first meeting it'd be, well, what's the process, what's the steps, and what does that look like, and what's the bottom line here? By 2 meetings or 3 meetings in, they were saying things like, well, I was in the car today with my son. We had this real connection. And I felt this with this client. And so I said to the client, I think I can work with you if we got the right kind of relationship. And then, Derek, I let go of these other clients over here that I just felt the work. I was thinking, oh my gosh, it didn't just work for me. It was working for everybody else. If they set standards from within and dare to be those standards, dare to live as they truly are, everything will change for them. And that's why I think I got invited to talk and to speak around the world, and I got invited to the movie. I had a cameo in that movie with Jack Canfield and
Yes.
John Gray, which is Keeper of the Keys, because they were saying, that's good stuff, can we get that guy into the film? So I had a call from LA and they said, yeah, come along and film that. Then more talking, became a professional speaker a couple of years ago, and then a book offer from a Hay House, and all these things occurred. And I think this is true for all of us. We all have a journey that we're on. And the journey that we are on could be the journey that's right for us, or the journey that's wrong for us. Let me just define that. Wrong for us means the journey that we take based on what everybody else thinks we should do. I think you should do this. You should go there, dress like that, look like that, eat those, don't eat those, go to that place, look up to this person, join that industry. We end up with a life, and God willing, if we get to 97 years old, we go, that was interesting. It wasn't even my life, I just lived. That was... but it's too late at that point.
Yeah.
You're shuffling on to the next phase after that. The other journey that we take is we say, hold on a second, this is my life. It was given to me. Your life was given to you. It matters not what anyone else in the world says or thinks you should do with your life. Their life was given to them.
Yeah.
Your life is given to you. Live your life. Above all things, be true to thyself. Live your life. And if that means you have a feeling or intuition or guidance, you should go left instead of going right, or to take that degree instead of that, or to take that job and not that one, this client, follow that intuition. And I know what it's like to follow the journey of true self. So initially you might think to yourself, hold on a second. Am I brave enough to do this? Can I really, everyone's saying this, I'm going to follow my own intuition. Who am I to tell me what to do?
Yeah.
That's what people say to themselves.
Yeah.
So they ignore their own voice
Yeah.
and listen to somebody else's. This is what people do every single day. And my philosophy says, actually, your voice, your inner genius, is your truth, is your guru. It knows you better than you know yourself, your thinking self. It knows you better than your thinking self. It's your heart, it's your intuition. Follow it. And it gives you intuition and guidance. That's its language for you. That's how it speaks to you. That's how it shares with you. And if you have the courage to follow even just the small things, it will give you bigger guidance. It won't just say step over this stone, it will say take a left down that lane. It won't say take a left down that lane, it will say get on a boat and go over there. And that's where you need to be. So it's about following the small things. So when I did, I had a whole epiphany, whatever it was that night, but as I work with other people, I guide them to follow the small things as well as the big things. Some people are fearful to follow the big things that come out of them.
Yeah.
But I say follow the small things, and if you follow that, your true self begins to believe in you.
Yeah.
It begins to trust you.
Yeah.
And when someone trusts you, does it share more or less with you? Exactly. It shares more with you. And as your true self shares more with you, you've now got a guru, linked to infinite intelligence, linked to God, linked to everything that is, guru, direct line to you.
Yeah.
That's your guru. And that's why we should follow that guru. Because whatever anybody else says in their life isn't necessarily for you. So my philosophy, as you know from the book, isn't about me saying to anyone, do this, 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 and this. I'm just saying, find yourself. Discover your true self. And begin to be that person, because that's where your truth is. That's you. And if you want guidance, go inside. Because that's where your truth is for you. That's what it's really all about. And if you don't mind, I'd like to say just one other thing, and that is that if, for example, we begin to pay attention to what life is really all about, and I think life is about, firstly, recognition that this is your life, this is my life. This is so important a point that most people live a life based on what they think everybody else tells them they should do, and then end up at either in therapy or at some point where they're thinking, I'm going to find myself again. Trying to find yourself at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Why not just be yourself? Yeah. Okay, so how long should you be yourself for? How about just for today? Why don't we take the pressure off? If I give you a goal and say, your goal is to make $1 million within 3 years, or to live in that house on that road, to be in this position, or to be a multimillionaire, whatever it might be, to be on stage, you set that as a goal. Often goals give us pressure, because they tell us that's what I want. There's a gap between where I am and what I want. Yeah. Therefore, that gap is what really shouts the most to us. And that gap is recognised as failure to the unconscious. The gap says, you haven't got it.
Yeah.
You haven't got it. I know you want it, but you haven't got it. So
and then you get into that whole negative spiral
exactly,
and all the reasons
and you
why
can
it
go
can't
down.
happen.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
yeah. And imagine doing that for another week and another year, and then 2 years go by, then 5 years go, and then 10 years go by, and you still haven't got the goals. You were told set big goals, enormous goals, whatever, and 10 years go by, and you still haven't got them. What does that tell you? It tells you to your unconscious mind that goals don't really work. I might just set them because the boss said, or because I went on a course and I was told to set goals. But you know what? I don't believe it anymore. I don't believe them. So the problem that we have is that goals give us other pressures, other stresses. When we see the gap, they'll give us more stresses. The difference with standards say, okay, set standards from within. Sit down. As you see, there's an exercise where you can sit down, calm yourself, steady yourself, begin to listen to breathe and listen to your inner voice, ask questions and have those words captured. They're your standards. But standards say, just do this for today. Not for next week, not for a month, not for a year. Just when you set a standard and your basis, criteria, level of quality of all, set it in one of 7 areas and do it just for today. There are 7 key areas. I mean, can I mention the website?
Yeah, of course you can. Fire away, please.
The website is derek-mills.com. DEREK-mills.com. And on there's a free download, which is called, it's just an initial document to help get people used to reviewing their old standards, realising that they've got them, and then setting new standards and committing to those. So it's derek-mills.com.
And I can highly recommend this download because I actually did this myself, and I would suggest that it's a good thing for you to do.
It's a fantastic thing, because what you end up doing is then realising that, gosh, where did my standards come from? What are the bases from which I'm working? Whether from mum, dad, brother, sister, community, media, my last job, my career, my first college, well, where do they come from?
Yeah.
And when we realise that point, we then say, okay, maybe I'll set new standards. Because until someone tells you, it's your choice. Maybe you didn't realise that.
Yeah.
So set new standards. And there are 7 key areas. They are your personal health and fitness, your environment. My environment, I don't necessarily mean the green environment, that also could be for someone else. But your environment is your attitude, your internal attitude, and your external environment, what you surround yourself with. Internal, you control your mind. Right? We know above all the creatures on the planet, we have that ability to control our thoughts, and we know this from ancient texts. And when most people live their lives, and they have in there, if you go into the garden of your mind today, is it a pit? Or is it a garden? Is it a beautiful rose garden with green grasses and lush plants and vegetables and fruits and everything you can support? Because here's the thing, when you go into the garden, that is your mind, you need to have it nurture you, give you good feedback, good nourishment and good feelings and sunshine and green grasses and pleasantness. But if you go into your mind, and your attitude is dark and dank, and you go to your mind, that's what it will feed you.
Yeah.
If you go into your mind and you're not taking care of the standard of your thinking, and you go into your mind, there'll be a pit, which is dark and sticky. And you don't get anywhere if you're dark and sticky in a pit. So one of the things I realised that the environment that we talk about is the internal environment and the attitude, and the external environment, what we listen to. As in, not the radio. Yeah. Because when you have the radio on every hour, it dumps some negative news in your head.
Yeah.
Not reading the newspapers.
Yeah.
As standard, not watching TV programs at all, because I've spoken now on different continents around the world, and I always say, in the UK, people listen to the news every hour, every half an hour, TV, radio, whatever, newspapers, read them all, and I say, is it the same here? I say, because in the newspapers and the TV in the UK, the news shows who's died, who's been killed, murder,
whatever's
war,
terrible that's happened in the world today, that's
bad
what we
economy,
report.
Horrendous stuff, so all that's there. Everywhere around the world, it's the same.
Yeah.
They say the same, that's in our paper as well. India, Jamaica, America, that's in their papers as well.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Why is a corn-fed chicken yellow?
Because
it eats yellow corn.
Yeah.
So if you feed your mind with what you hold in your mind, pits rather than garden, and what you surround yourself with, people and newspapers and TV, then you can't be surprised if your life ends up challenging and difficult with problems, and you can't get through, and things are just difficult, and you go into your mind, there's no garden, just darkness, and you wonder why you're not getting anywhere in life. Yeah. So it's vital. I mean, it's crucial that we begin setting new standards for our thinking. That's the internal environment and what we surround ourselves with. So the papers now have got really clever. If you go onto the trains or the tube around London and the rest of the country, the Metro newspaper, that's free.
Yeah.
You go to London, you have the London Evening Standard, which you used to have to pay for. Now it's free. So people are literally on the trains going, free paper.
Yeah.
Like free negative dump into your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not costing £1 anymore. It's free.
Yeah.
Rubbing their hands thinking free newspaper. Yeah, free negative dump in your mind.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
on your hour-and-a-half journey home, whatever it is, in your car, why would you listen to the news every half an hour and have additional dump? So that's really important to have the environment that we set up for ourselves controlled. We have choices.
Yeah.
So set new standards, new regimes, new rules. We don't do this, we do this. We listen to that, but not that. If that comes on, we turn that off, put a CD on. So what can we do instead? We can replace that environment in our car with inspirational, motivational, business, CDs, spiritual CDs and DVDs, and we can choose what we want to have fed into our minds. So what I'm saying is there's a massive area here, which I call environments, which is around what you are inside your environment and the external. Then there's relationships, very, very simple. My father gave us a couple of rules when we were younger, because I lost my mother when she was 36. My father, 7 of us, 7 kids, and he brought us up really on 2 rules, very simple rules. He said, number 1, drop the bad company.
Yeah.
Which meant whoever you're around, if they're bad company, not good for you, drop them.
Yeah. And
the other one was, you must keep good company. My dad worked in a factory all of his life. He was an immigrant from Jamaica to this country. No qualifications whatsoever, but he knew. He brought up 7 kids, all together up to be from between 5 and 17, up to adults.
Yeah.
With none of us getting in any problems or any troubles after us, because he knew, uneducated as he was, he knew you'll become like those with whom you associate.
Absolutely.
So this factory working guy just said, drop the bad company. Because if you stick with them long enough, you become like them.
Yeah.
You must keep good company. Seek out people who are good and nurturing for you. And guess what? You probably get the best out of your life if you do that.
Absolutely.
He had no qualifications to name, but he knew that.
Yeah.
So there's relationship standards that we can set, and of course that's vital for personal. If you're in a relationship with someone, not just a friend, but in terms of a loving relationship, partner, husband, wife, spouse. I spoke to Dr. John Gray a couple of years ago. We had a couple of conversations, and he wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So I was talking about standards in relationships and what I thought I was writing, which didn't dig into this book, but is in other works that I'm doing. And he said, Derek, relationships are all about standards.
They are.
And if we set the right standards within relationships, it can either empower and make that relationship stronger. But if you don't have standards in relationships, then eventually you end up with a lose-lose scenario. Yeah. And there's a long conversation, but the idea is, relationship standards are vital, not just with our family and our friends, but with everyone. So then another thing is around standards is family. So family is to me, I wasn't seeing my family. So it became really, to its top on this when I made some new shifts, set some new rules up, some new levels I would adhere to, some new qualities I'll be as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a son to my father. I set these new standards up, and I committed to those standards. Then we have the emotions. And you may notice there's a pattern here, because personal health and fitness is the P.
Yeah.
It's called perfect.
Yeah.
So personal health. Yeah, personal health and fitness, environment, relationships, family, emotions, which is our emotions, and there's also career and time. It's perfect. Yeah. So the emotions is really simple because of time. I'll leave it like this, and that is that most people in life do not recognise that they do most of their emotions. Emotions don't do you.
Yeah.
Studies over decades have shown that when you're angry or frustrated or whatever it is, you're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're doing
Take
it.
that responsibility.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if someone cuts you up in the car on the way home today, and you get angry and you chase them, and you give them the fist or give them the finger, whatever it might be, and you get angry, you transfer that anger to home and to whatever. You're doing all of that.
Yep.
What they did was they drove their vehicle
in
front of you, and you did the rest. Yeah. So just one example. So when I realised that, it was like, hold on a second. So I have standard emotional responses in certain scenarios, and if I'm doing them, I can do other more empowering emotions in those scenarios, and I can day by day practice doing those until I get into that same scenario and I react differently. So by setting new standards, forming new habits of emotions, you literally change who you are. Yeah. And when you change, everything will change
changes.
for you.
Yeah.
And the other two were career and time. I talked about some of the career standards earlier on, just a few of them, the early ones, and time, what I did. Time is an important one for me because the time standards is really simple. It says, discover who you are, spend your time on this earth. Set new standards around your time on this earth being that person. That opens up a whole area for
It's
everyone.
a game changer in a big way, that is, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
And I want to just kind of then now to take the pressure off. So I've got there all these new standards. I've got to do this and perfect. So how do I do this? Part of how we do standards is we say, just do it for today. Take the pressure off. Not for 3 years, not even for a month. Just for today. Set standards from within and stick at those standards just for today. Just until you get your head back on your pillow tonight. Stick at your standards. Just for today. And if the good Lord gives you tomorrow morning, well, that's another day.
Yep.
Do your standards just for that day. This is not for next week. You get this, don't you? This is not for next month.
This is for right now.
This is not for 24. This is just for the day that you are in.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, that seems conscious good sense because it takes the pressure off long-term goals, the pressure of having to be in and seeing the gap. It just says, discover who you are from within, set standards, and whatever time, say it's 2 or 2:30 now, just be this until about, well, I go to bed at 10 tonight. Can I do that? I reckon I've got a much better chance of doing that and sticking to my standards than trying to be this thing over the next 3, 5, 10 and 20 years. But this isn't new wisdom. 2,000 years ago, a gentleman walked around the planet, Christ. And Christ walked on the planet and he spoke in stories and metaphors and he gave us many things, many words that he said. And one of the things he gave us to remember was the Lord's Prayer. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian, because if you're a Christian, you believe that he's the Son of God. If you're a Muslim, you believe he was a prophet. But either way, both these huge religions believe that this guy walked around a couple of thousand years ago. But in the middle of the Lord's Prayer, there were 4 words I found fascinating. And the four words were, give us this day. Give us this day. Not this week, not this month, not this fiscal year, not this 3-year business plan. Give us this day. Son of God, or one of the most respected prophets, Son of God, he's probably right about that one.
Yeah.
Now, if he meant to say, give us this month, or work by the week, or work by the quarter, or the fiscal year, I think he'd have said so, wouldn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Give us this fiscal year, a daily
yeah.
bread. But he didn't say, he said, give us this, because he knew it's about getting from the day, getting the best of you into the day, getting through this day, helping someone else in this day, loving in this day, being your light in this day, getting all you can be, being all you can be in this day today. That's what it's about. And I know that for absolute truth, because he meant to be something else. He'd have said something else. He said, give us this day. But somewhere else in the Bible, he also says, have no worry for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't get the give us this day bit, you've got to get the don't worry about tomorrow bit. When you put those two together, it's kind of, it's about the now.
Yeah,
it's about being
like
present
live
and today.
it now.
And that's why when the concept of standards came through me, about set standards and stick at them just for today, just for one day at a time. If you get up in the morning, just for today, no longer. Just about be all you can be, do it today. I knew that was coming from somewhere else. I knew that came from the source, because I'm not clever enough. Most stuff that comes out of me, I don't think about it. I pretty much say what comes up. When I'm sitting down or standing and I'm channeling, what comes up comes up.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing that we are all connected, and we're all connected to the source.
Yeah.
So when I say there's a genius inside each of us, there really is. It's the genius that's you, but that genius is also connected to everything else that is.
Yeah.
And therefore, as part of that oneness, we are all together in the same. So if there's genius to be had, it's to be had through you.
Yeah.
It's to be had through each and every one of us. But when we live our life as non-self, when we start listening to the inner voice, when we start into the outside world and doing all these things, we don't get the genius guidance.
No.
We don't get the inner guru saying to us, Claire, Derek, let's do this. Let's turn this way, or this feels right. We don't get the intuition. We don't get the instinct that the Aborigines have lived off for thousands of years. We don't get that, and we wonder why we struggle.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to just consider, that have everyone to consider, is that if there's a genius, a guru no less, inside of you, what would be the use of having that guru and genius inside of you if you paid no attention to it?
Yeah.
And the reverse of that would be, what could your life look like if you turned and listened to the inner guru, turned on your genius and paid attention? And what if you, I know what the answer to some of those questions are. Some of the questions come back to my Derek, but how can I trust myself? For all these years, I'm 30 or 40 years old, how do I just trust myself? And I just say, well, one day at a time.
Yeah.
No. Set your standard, but keep you in your true self. Live your truth just for today.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you keep doing that just one day at a time, you do it, long enough, just as a test. Maybe don't believe any of this stuff.
No.
Let's suppose you thought, well,
this works. I promise you, do this.
Suppose you said, well, load of hocus pocus. Well, what if you just did it for today, and you did it every day that God gave you, long enough to see what would happen if you did? So I'm not going to prove anything, but each of us is given a day and given a life. It's our day and it's our life. In that day, set standards, live as our true self, follow our truth, be guided by self, and keep doing that the more every day that you're given. And do it long enough to see what would happen if you did. Because then I've got nothing to prove. You'll be proving it to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, the shift in your life. And I want to say, when people talk about the shift, I talk about the financial shift because I was broken, repossessions and all the rest of it. So I want people to know that it wasn't just that I felt better and enlightened and fresh and light and love. It literally gave me guidance in my daily business that meant to showed me to convert my business into something which is phenomenally different. But it also, my true self, as with all of us, is very, very creative, incredibly creative when we tap in. Because by tapping into my true self, I was able to find that I was a creative genius. Not only did I star in that film, co-star, should I say, with I became an executive producer of another film. So someone approached me and just said, Derek, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, you know what? Went inside. Yeah, I can executive produce a film. Yeah. Did it before? No. But something inside me tells me I can do that.
Yeah.
So my creative genius began to flow, and I gave some guidance, and some other stuff came up for me. We ended up working with director, he's an actor and director, Adrian Lester. Mm-hmm. He's on BBC The Hustle.
Yeah.
His wife, Lily Chakrabarti, actress and director as well, and playwright. And to put together a film company, I was the executive producer, and never done it before. And the film that we made was a film short called Of Mary. You can check it out on IMDb database. And the film which was screened at Raindance 2011, and last year we won the American Best Short Film at the PAFF Film Festival. So from these just little things and a huge amount of things that have happened for me that I can, which I know a couple of things. The first is that I could not set goals around this stuff because I didn't know I had it in me. Yeah. So it was just like ridiculous to set goals around those things. But when I went into my inner genius, my creative genius began to flow. So when I do things I have no idea that I could do before. Yeah. This is one of the parts of the huge payoff of the true self. The stuff inside you right now, you have no idea what it is, but it's in you nonetheless. Yeah. And when you act from your true self space, it will begin to flow in your life. People begin to say to you, how on earth did you go from there? How did you do that? And you've got this person, you're coaching that person that works over there, and you've got politicians in your... How have you done that, Claire? And you say, well, it was in me.
I've been me. And I think the one thing that I always, and you can all relate to this, guys, because I'm going to say the thing that I say to you all the time again, and that is, I always encourage people to kind of do nothing and just allow that voice to come through, because I always say that doing nothing is seriously underrated.
Absolutely.
Because people just, they think that they've got to be busy, and they think that the only way that they can actually achieve the results they want is by being busy.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's by kind of, I've got to pound, it's like, the runner, I've got to pound the pavement so I can achieve what it is that I want. And actually, it is true, but it's not true, because it's about just breathe and allow yourself to hear that voice. Because I know for many, many years, I didn't trust my intuition. I didn't, as you say, you'd be dry. When I started in the world of financial services, I had a little A to Z for every single area. There was no sat nav, was there? Yeah, and you'd be sort of, you'd finish one A to Z and drive to another county, and you'd start the next one. You'd open the book again.
You get the big
exactly, that's it.
One.
Yeah, where are we going to go? And there are always instances where you get somewhere and you'd be like, right, okay, so this is telling me to go here, but there's just something telling me that I do need to go left, and I didn't listen. Okay. And now that's something that I listen to massively, because we are creatures of habit, and we can very much keep going round in circles, but what your philosophy does is it stops that habitual circle, and it actually says, well, okay, if I just take that time to hear this voice, which is me, and I always encourage people that, we can have things and we can do things, but actually the most valuable thing that we all own is this. because it's the most amazing computer that we walk
Yeah.
around in every single day, and there's nothing quite like the asset that is you.
Indeed.
So it's about trusting that intuition and trusting that I can do this.
Yes.
And like you say, don't you set yourselves up for a fall. Do it on a daily basis.
This is it.
Because by doing it on that daily basis, it is a game changer.
It is. And you've only got to do this until you get your head back on the pillow tonight.
Yeah.
And this is age-old wisdom.
Yeah.
You do not know you've got tomorrow.
No.
So what are you going to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
Why don't you just do you today?
Yeah.
So when I'm this, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to tell my friends how much I'm going to hug my friends, tell them how much I love them, tell my kids the same, and my partner, my spouse, and be loving and sharing. When? Tomorrow. Really?
Yeah, today.
No. It's about being you today. So what you have.
Yeah.
See, as far as I'm aware, when you're in that hearse, there isn't a roof rack that says, here's all these worldly goods. It's just you in the hearse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or your body in the hearse. You can't take it with you
No.
using that metaphor. Spiritually, of course, we're gone. But the point is, nothing we have of the earth can we take with us.
Yeah.
But we can be who we really are.
Yeah.
We can begin to live out the essence of our truth. So when the ego says, I must have that, and must have that, and I've got to be one of those, I have fun with right now, all the time. And I love paying attention to what people think I should do, whether it be in restaurants or whatever, in a shop, whatever, and then do what I really feel I should do. And I used to embarrass my wife and kids. Dad, you can't say that. Well, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, I can.
That's all I'm going to say. That's what I do here. Or in business, I might go, why did you get rid of 90% of your clients? Why did you? Because they weren't serving. They were dragging me everywhere. They had no respect for me. They were getting me to go and see them every weekend and at nights, knowing they had a wife, knowing they had a family. So therefore, what was that telling you about them? So they were winning them. So I just said, please let someone else service all those people. People were going, what do you mean by that? So you gave away all your clients. Well, 90% of them, yeah, because it felt the right thing to do for me.
Yeah.
And I've literally met with people in both here and in the States. Some of my best friends based in America, where I've met them because the dots I followed. Steve Jobs from Apple, he references and he talks about looking behind him and joining up the dots of his life and seeing where it came from and where we get to today. What I like to kind of just throw out there is, what if we could just use our true self to throw out our future dots and just say, okay, today, where's the dot? Where am I today? And be on that spot. Come on, just for today.
Yeah.
Just be that today. And if God gives you tomorrow, well, where's it leading me? So, the spot's there now, so that's where I've got to be today. And when you do that, you're trusting yourself, going into the day saying, where's my spot today? Where am I today? Where am I inside myself today? And that releases, there is so much to share, but one of the things I have had the joy of experiencing week and month and year after year since my waking up is that my true self really does guide me the more I pay attention to it. It really does. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
Because it was guiding me. Now I can say, if I'm going to go into on a small level, if I go into a dinner, for an event I'm going to, whatever, there's no table plans. You can sit where you want to sit. I go to a dinner, and I literally use my true self to to fill the room. And as I fill the room, I'm going to go this way. I kind of walk through here. It's that table. If there's chairs available, it's that, and I'll sit there. Yeah. And I promise you that when I do that, something comes out of me being in that space. And what's interesting, when I share this with people, they go, well, Derek, I tried that. And I sat on the train, I followed my intuition on the train, or at a dinner, nothing happened. And I say, well, hold on a second. We are all connected here. So when you are part of the oneness, part of the connectedness, this isn't just about you. So you may have been in that place, in that chair, and said the right thing, felt the right feeling, expressed in your eyes, or just been warm enough or shone some of your light into the world, and the person next to you is why you're there, not for you.
Yeah.
You were there for them. Some people say, well, to me, well, I didn't get anything out of that, nothing happened. And I say, well, perhaps it wasn't about you.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's around the person that you were there at that table and they're going, oh my gosh, the thing that Claire said changed am I going to do this differently because of that? Or even if it's just a smile.
Yeah.
We're all born and come from light. And if we share our light with someone, maybe they go home into their darkened home and they share some of their light because it was given to them.
Yeah.
So begin to be led by our true selves and to almost letting the ego, push the ego away and say, I'm going to this place and just be me. Not necessarily be me for me, just be me. And if something comes out of that for me, that's great. If something comes out of that for the people at the table, and that's wonderful, because I'm connected to them as well. And originally, energetically and spiritually, we're all connected. So when I'm helping you, I'm helping me.
Yeah.
I'm not just doing this in this life, so what can I get? So I can increase my count of stuff. So I can't take the stuff with me when I shuffle off this mortal coil. But all I can do is be me in that place. As I share my light and you share your light, then the place is lighter for all of us. Now we all get to see more the more each of us shares our light. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's like you say, it's we're conditioned to not show our true colours and to not be ourselves. And one thing that I've always been told my entire life is, "Clare, you're very opinionated," and you always say it as you see it, and it's like, well, yeah, because I believe that it's best for me to be honest. What would you rather? Would you rather that I told you what you wanted to hear just because you wanted to hear it? And I think that people find that challenging, don't they? But as you've said, it's not anybody else's life, it's your own.
Indeed.
And for you to be the most powerful and for you to leave the impact that you're meant to leave here on planet Earth and on this plane, then the only way that you can do that is, as you say, by being your true self.
Absolutely.
And living the life for now and not for anything in the future, because we just never know whether that's going to come.
We don't know whether that's there. And also it is about the now, because each of us, we all come from light and energy and love, and we come here in different physical bodies, but we're still part of that same light.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we end up, see, you are the universe expressing itself.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
Each of us is the universe expressing itself in a different way.
Yeah.
This gift was given to you. So for you to hide that gift and shove it down and look around, what everybody else is doing, and just copy them, and having your light diminish and diminish and diminish. Now you'll know at 97 or 102, you'll go, didn't quite live that life as me. And this is important, because at that point, we're in a physical world here, aren't we?
Yeah.
But we are spirit.
Yes.
And when we move off this physical world, we will begin to think, hold on a second, I am now moving on. So I must have been here in this physical body for a reason. Spirit in a physical body, but here for a reason. And I think the answer to why we're here is inside each of us.
Yeah.
And the more we shove ourselves down and listen to the world and everybody else and hide our true selves, the less chance of us getting the answer.
Yeah.
The less chance of us releasing our gifts, releasing our talents, sharing our light in the world. And when we do that and we share our gifts and share our talent in love and light for other people, we win. Because I'm going to share something with you which is, it concerns all of us, and that is that so many people in the world today see themselves as being separate and apart. From a country point of perspective, one country is not another country, one human is not a human, even if they're in the same room, they say I'm separate to that person. But actually, there's nothing in science or metaphysics or spirituality or religion that says we're all separate. It all says we're all eternal, and we come from and we go to, we're all part of the oneness and every other language. Even from a quantum physics point of view, we're all energy. Everything. Me, you, the table, the basis. Everything is energy. You break it down, it comes. That's energy. So this is intelligent energy, the universe expressing itself. So I began to share through the philosophy that if we begin to walk around our daily lives as if we're part of a oneness, as if we're part of something greater, I am you, and you are me, and we're all kind of one thing. We really treat each other differently. Because let's suppose left hand, right hand. Have I got that right?
Yeah. Another one after my own heart. I don't know the difference either.
So that my right hand is unlikely to get a gun and shoot the left hand.
Yeah.
Why? Because it recognises it's part of the same body.
Yeah.
You look at the inside of the body, the heart beats and regulates the blood flow throughout our body. The blood carries nutrients, not just to the centre, but to all extremities of the body, and the heart beats to support that. Our lymph system, everything around, everything in our body, one thing supports the other because it recognises it's part of itself. The stomach takes in food, doesn't keep it, you notice that?
Yeah.
It disperses it to every extremity of our being, and one hand supports it. Now, if I'm thirsty, and I'm away from the cup, and I need that, and I reach my hand out, my body will, without even thinking, will automatically serve and get me towards the cup so I can drink from that cup. And when I drink from that cup, the body system distributes the nutrients throughout. What's my point? We're all part of one body, all of us. And the moment we begin to realise that we're part of the oneness, we stop shooting each other. We start supporting one another. We start nurturing one another. We start sharing the goodness and the nutrients and the world, what's available in the world becomes available to all parts of that body. And the reason in the world today there are fights and issues and wars is because everybody that's in those places thinks that they're separate from everybody else, and it's wrong. Every one of us is part of the same thing. Well, where we came from knew that. Where we go to knows that. But in these physical bodies, we're just simply nothing more than expressions of the universe. So, if in my business, it might sound a bit odd from a business person, but when I sit down with prospective clients or with existing clients, I just sit there and I just hold a space for them and feeling them as part of me. And me as part of them. I feel that connect. I look at what's called the A, B, C, and C.
Yeah.
And the A, B, C, and C. The A is me being my authentic true self. The B is where I'm balanced. Really important to be balanced when you're dealing with other people. Balance meaning that if you're in it just for you, that's called greed. And greed is a negative emotion that takes us down. If we do it all for them, you become a martyr. It's all well and good that they get everything out of you, but you can't pay your bills because you're in a physical world, whether you like it or not, with a physical world, and you can't live and you can't survive, and you go down. You're on the street. So you can't be existing greed, and you can't be existing in a pure martyrdom, because at the end of it, in one way, everybody loses, another way, you lose. So it must be a balance when you're dealing with any other person on a win-win basis. And the centeredness, the C is the centeredness. We must hold a space for other people, to be centered and recognizing, God, this person is just me. It's light. It's part of me. It's who I am. It's what I am. Different expression on their journey in this universe, doing amazing and learning things. And we're going to perhaps meet off again because we already know each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been there before, and we're going to go elsewhere after this place. And when you begin to sit with someone who says to you, "What do I do with my money?" or "What product do I buy?" How do I check? You hold that space, that centered place for them, and the second C comes in. So A, B, C, and C: authentic, balanced, centered, and the final C comes in, which is the connectedness. Yeah. When you're A, B, C, and C, the connectedness says, actually, I really am connected to this person. Yeah. This isn't just some kind of spiritual hope or some dream. No, I really am connected to this person. Now, I love the idea of they have in quantum physics that shows how we are all energetically connected. Yeah. No spaces, no gaps. That's it. Yeah. And then if you've had a machine here that sucked out all the air and created a vacuum, light can go through a vacuum. So even light, so there are no gaps between us. We really are connected. I know that's only a metaphor unless you're a quantum physicist, but what if we begin to live in our lives as if we are connected and we sit here and have a connection? I'm going to do the best for you. Yeah. And here's the thing. If you're in business, this is where the bottom line gets paid off. If you're in business or in sales, and the customer or prospect in front of you gets a feeling that, wow, she's authentic. Yeah. And see, she's definitely working in my interests. She'll make a living, but she's definitely working in my interests. Centered, I can feel it. See, they don't think these thoughts. No. They feel them. They feel and they feel a connection with you. They then start saying things like, I'll do business with you. Yeah. I'm doing business with you. And it's a game changer. I know you're all more expensive. Yeah. Or I know that this guy I've worked with for the last 20 years, but I'll do business. This was the biggest breakthrough I had when I went from zero to hero, quote unquote, in those few years, is that I saw people in this very room at this table who are coming to me and saying, you're not the brightest guy we've ever met. I'm not the brightest guy on this floor. Not the most qualified guy on this floor. All the rest, but they would say, we feel we want to deal with you. Yeah. And we want to deal with you. Yeah. Is that okay with you? Yeah. And I went from scratching around for business to people coming in saying, do we have enough? Millions
to be your client. You. Absolutely.
And that's happened dozens of times. Yeah. Because there was a shift. Yeah. And the shift isn't just a shift in me, it's a shift by me saying there's this connection here. And when you sit down with people, regardless of what they've done in their lives, and this is advice to anyone who wants to break through another level, no matter who you sit down with, they are a spirit in a human body. And if you connect with them at that level through the A, B, C, and C, you'll be a level of communication with them that no one else has got. And they'll do business with you rather than somebody else.
Yeah. I love it. Derek, I'm conscious of your time, and on that, I'm afraid that we're going to have
We've
to...
run out of time.
Yeah, we've run out of time. We're going to have to stop. But I hope that you've enjoyed that. I hope that you've gained as much from this interview as, as I did when I met Derek originally and when I read the book. And check it out. If you Google literally the 10-second philosophy Derek Mills, it will come up. I bought it within kind of 6 hours of actually meeting Derek, and I'd read half of it by the next day. So for me, it was a real game changer. It made me look at things in a really, really different way. And I was very familiar with a huge amount of what you already, you already encourage people to think of and to look at. But thank you, Derek. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you again today, and to be able to share this with the people in the audience. And I
want to say thank you very much, because for me, this is what I do. I only do me now. Yeah. So you give me the opportunity to share with you and therefore share with others is just me being me. That's my realisation. So it's me that's thankful. Really appreciate it. No. I really do.
Well, everybody, I hope that you've enjoyed your very special Motivational Monday this week. I've had real great pleasure bringing this interview and actually being in the iconic room where it happened. I've got to be honest, I'm quite excited about that. Yeah, the shift happened here, where we are right now. Anyway, have a fabulous rest of your day. I will be back online again in less than 2 hours with How To Girl TV with Carol Dodsley. So join us at 5 o'clock for our business chit chat. But thanks, Derek. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again